hello, is that Leda?
Yes?
This is Paul Seaton. You remember
Hello, Paul.
Hello.
Nice to hear from you. I wonder what's happened to you.
Well, you know...
Maybe you're very busy, you know.
Well, that's, 3 kids, life and everything. How are you?
Not too bad. Keep it going, you know.
I have some news for you.
Yes?
You remember Tom Turton?
Yes.
His grandson got in touch with me.
Grandson of
Yeah, Tom is a very strange story. I don't think you knew that during...
I didn't know it. As far as I know, he wasn't not married.
No, that's what everybody thought.
Yeah, maybe he got married early and he divorced or something, or separated, and he had a son.
He had 2 marriages. He was the first one, I think, was in about 1932. To his cousin. I think somehow his cousin, with a pretty close relationship, she got pregnant. They ran away to Gretna Green in Scotland.
How did you manage to find her there?
Because his grandson told me. His grandson, I put a picture of Tom.
Where does he live?
Where does he live?
Yeah.
Chichester.
Chichester?
Yeah, he sounds quite young. I think he's probably younger than me. He's the next generation. But I didn't know that I thought Tom Turton was
Well, you really, really surprised me, Paul, because, Bill Redshaw?
Yeah.
You heard about him?
I know, I got that big document that he wrote about his time, that's all I know about. And he ended up in a nursing home in Eastbourne, I think, and got divorced, didn't he? Split up from his kids and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a long story, but we know all about it. And we did know quite a bit about Turton, but he never told us anything, as far as I know it. In hand, he didn't have a wife, he didn't have anybody.
Well, he had, I've also found out the truth about how he died, which I've been trying to find out. And if I go back a bit,
he had a pub, didn't he?
He came from a line of landlords, and he went to a grammar school in North London, which was a school for kids of publicans, I think. So he was a grammar school boy, and he ran away to Scotland in I think early 1930s because he got his cousin pregnant, basically.
Oh my God.
So they ran off to Scotland, where I think the laws were different about marriage. They were both in their sort of early 20s, I think. And then they came back to North London, where they were both from sort of pub families, him and his cousin. Mm-hmm. And they both families owned a fair number of pubs, and I think that is how Tom came by the Black Bull up in Whetstone.
Yes. Well, we know how he died. He died accident. He went down in the cellar.
No, but that's not why he died, really, Leda.
Yeah.
He died because he had cancer.
I did have a cancer.
Yeah, he had. His grandson says that he's got the death certificate because he's now starting to research all this about his granddad himself.
Ah.
And he did fall down the stairs in the Duke of York, which was his pub in Tunbridge Wells.
Yes.
But that wasn't. And his technical cause of death was.
Maybe one thing followed the other.
Well, I think it was because he was very sick anyway.
Yeah.
He was only in his 40s.
Yeah.
And I think his family thought he'd died of a heart attack. His heart had failed. He fell down the stairs.
He used to drink, he used to eat, he used to,
Yeah.
I could picture him now when he used to pass on the back of my house with the jeep.
Yes.
And we never did find out the one who used to be his bodyguard, Who
was that? Who was Turton?
His name was, we used to say Tony, but I think his real name was Ray Hitchcock.
Okay, that's...
From Bristol.
Yeah.
And we tried, but in the end we gave up. We couldn't find him.
You never found him?
We never found him.
Okay.
And now we jumped, but I don't know if you did know or not.
Brown Wallace? Yes.
Have you heard he died?
Oh, was he the guy who was in Doncaster? Is that the one, or
no, I know he's in Scotland, but what part?
I know. I sent a letter, I think, to an address somewhere.
Yes, he told me where this why, and I didn't know it. He rang me up Christmas, not this Christmas, last Christmas.
Yeah.
And he told me, she said, I ring up to wish you up Christmas. He said, we are on the move, but the new place, bungalow, is not finished. We'll have to rent the place.
Yeah.
He said, temporary. He said, I won't give you that address, but soon we move on a new bungalow. He said, I'll send you the address.
Yeah.
And I never heard, I couldn't get in touch.
That's what, last time I spoke to you, that's what you said, that was the situation.
And because after Sadie died, I had a phone call. It was his wife, Brenda.
Yeah.
And she told me, I got the bad news. And I said, well, I got bad news this end too, you know.
Yeah.
And we did talk a little bit. And she told me, she said, I'll write to you and I'll send a new address. And he died last year after Seaton. I can't remember if it was March, April, or if it was September, something like that.
Because you know Ken Barry died as well.
Yes, and his wife.
And his wife, just one day apart.
Yeah.
So, you don't know what's going to happen to all the records that he had, do you? Because I sent Ken Barry an email to ask him something, and I got an email back from his son saying, sorry to tell you, Ken died. It was Christmas, wasn't it? And his wife died the following day or something.
He died on Thursday and she died Friday morning.
Crikey. But you don't know what's going to happen with all his records and bits of paper and stuff.
The problem is, I think the son lives in Canada. And he got a daughter. I suppose in a hand they would have finished in a bonfire.
Well, I sent an email to the son after, I sent one email just saying, oh, sorry to hear that, I'll leave you alone, I won't ask you any questions about it. And then I just thought, I wonder what's going to happen to all his records and stuff, and I sent an email saying, if you can't find another home for all his bits of paper and records, I'll take them, I can store them at least, I can look after them. But I never got a reply.
No.
So his family, he had a daughter, and they live in Canada, and he doesn't have any sort of relatives or people in England, is that?
And I don't know, but the son lives in Canada, the daughter lives in England.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Maybe so the house where they used to live, presumably, and there's no good ringing that number, because it would be probably sold by now.
It would be, it won't be anybody there.
Yeah, maybe because the only other contact I've got is Ken's old email address, and I doubt if that's still functioning. So it's
sorry, Ken who?
Ken Barry. His old. Yeah.
You did know Ken Oakley died too.
Everybody's flaming down. I didn't know that. No. No.
I said last year it really was a sad day.
Is Ray Bromley still alive?
Yes, he's still alive, but not 100%,
Okay, it's amazing how Ray keeps going, I must say.
Well, he had the physical chemotherapy.
I know, that's...
And he had 3, and the doctor was very, very pleased the way he took it.
Yeah.
And... but he said, we can't do anything else, and we can't give you any chemotherapy, anything else. He said, just keep going to the end of it,
Yeah.
And, I did say a few months back, and actually I had a card. It's my birthday, so and then sent me a birthday card.
Sure.
I reached 83.
Yeah. I wonder, because... Tom Turton's grandson, his name is Griffin, which is Griffin, Griffin, which is a strange name, but it was his grandfather's name. It was Tom Turton's dad's name as well, Griffin Turton. And the grandson, he would like to talk to you, and I said I kind of assumed it would be okay to give him your phone number, but
I don't mind, if they say what they are, and I tell all of the truth why I know it.
Sure.
I'm still feeling that iron is. My mother used to do a bit of wash. I think I mentioned it to you.
Yeah.
And because in the summer they used to wear whole white shorts and shirt, you know, and everything. And oh, if you saw him, you thought it was a lord.
Yeah. So is that okay, Leda, if I pass your phone number on to him? Because he was a bit nervous. I mean, he sounds fairly young, chap, and I'm sure he'd love to talk to you, and I'm sure you could tell him a thing or two about. You know.
That really was a surprise, because I'm sure Bill Redshaw must know something. Yeah. Because when we asked it, and they said, where he live, you know, and Sid asked him, he said, oh, he hasn't got anybody, he's single. Well,
when he was with his second wife, I think both his wives, his first wife is still alive. She's nearly 100.
Oh my God!
And I might have got this mixed up, but I'm pretty sure that she's still alive.
It could be, because she was quite older, isn't it?
Well, Tom Turton, I think he was born in about 1908 or something like that, and she was a little bit younger. And I think she's still alive, and she's not as together in her mind as she was 4 or 5 years ago. No. But his second wife is still alive as well. That's the kid who rang me. That's his aunt. She's about 70 odd, something like that. She's quite young. But
could you ever find out a lot? It's a bit late, you know.
I know. It's because of the internet, Leda. Because I know. There's a website where there's a guy. I think he's Dutch, and he's got a website. And he's got all the records he can find of loads of naval officers from the Royal Navy in the Second World War, yeah? And he had a little entry for somebody, I can't think who it was, and I was asking him about this person, and I said, I can tell you a few other people, if you know, and I told him about Tom Turton and maybe a couple of others, yeah? And I sent him a little picture of Tom Turton, just a tiny little picture from one of the photographs, and he put it on his website. And now the grandson, Tom Turton's grandson, was looking around on the internet for stuff about his granddad, and he found it. So he got in touch with the Dutch guy, and said, where did you get this photograph of my granddad from? Because he'd never seen the picture before in his life. And so the Dutch guy gave him my email, and then I got an email just a couple of days ago saying, you know, where did you get this picture of my granddad from? And I've sent him a few things. You know the picture you sent me of Tom Turton with about 5 petty officers around him, and the big. I've sent him copies of that, and I've sent him Bill Redshaw's
photograph.
You know that manuscript that Bill Redshaw wrote about his time with them. I sent him that as well, which has got a lot of little details about, you know, me and Tom did this and me and Tom did the other. So you know, he's kind of excited by all this. So if I ask you, I'll say it's okay anyway for him to give you a ring, Leda, if that's because another thing I found, which I didn't know, was that Sid, all his stuff is at the War Museum. His sort of memories, you know, there's a big taped interview with him at the War Museum.
Yes.
And I got I got the bit from when he was in the Naval Commandos. I got it from the War Museum. That's about 2 hours of it, I think.
Well, I think it's about the 5 he made it.
Yeah. And I got...
He did want to know, sorry if I interrupt, it's from the beginning when he joined the Navy and right down to the commander, you know.
Sure. I would have got the lot, but they charge you. I think they charged me about 10 quid for each reel, and there are about 5 reels. I think I got 2 of them, which were the ones about, you know, his time in the Naval Commandos. And Jerry Pocock as well. His stuff is there. I haven't got that yet. I'm waiting for them to send that to me.
Who is he?
You know Jerry Pocock? He was...
Oh, he's already, and he's still alive.
Yeah, well, I mean, last I heard he was. I haven't spoken to him for probably a bit more than a year, but...
I haven't seen him for... Well, I don't know how many, but the last time we went to the reunion... Yeah. It's quite a few years. The time of fly, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, there's one thing that Griffin said to me. Well, you know, the medal and all that about, you know, my dad, the DSM, and you were saying that Sid should have got the same medal, but Redshaw never signed the papers and all that.
Yeah.
Does that? He said the same thing. He said they got the medal because they were the first to land in, I think it was continental Europe or something like that, and they handed out a few medals more or less at random because of that.
Well, what Bill Redshaw, he was really fair man.
Yeah.
He said, well, what we done, we all was there. I should give one to everybody. You can't do that.
No.
And, you know, Sid used to joke with him. He said, at least you could have given me one. And he said, well, it wouldn't be fair to the other because they all was there with you, you know.
Yeah. Because Tom Turton, he got a mention in dispatches for the same thing. You know, he was put down for a medal as well, which would have been a DSO, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then I've got the paperwork for it, and it was sort of somewhere along the line, up the powers that be in the Navy, somebody changed it from an award, which would have been a medal, to a mention in dispatches. So that's where Tom Turton's mention in dispatches came from. It was given to them because they were the first to land in, you know, mainland Europe, I think, or continental Europe, you know. That's why they got it. So that seems to have sorted out the, you know, the medal, the medal story.
Yeah, but, you know, like Bill Redshaw did think one thing, and maybe some of the other commanders used to think a different thing, and this, how's it going?
Well, I don't know.
When I think, I feel ever so sad, the Porto thing, what they've been through, everything, like Paul said, they reached 85 in the end.
Well, I mean, look on the bright side, Leda. He had a longer life than my dad did, because my dad, you know, it was the, I think it was the rum got to my dad eventually. You know, his drink kind of destroyed him in the end, I think, and he died. He wasn't even, he was in his, he's younger than I am now. He was about 50, 53, 54 when he died. So, it's not a very, you know, nice end. So, but I mean, Ray Bromley, because I was trying to think of people who, you know, and knew Tom Turton, you know, who'd mentioned Tom Turton to me, and you were one of them. And Hugh...
I really could see him go by on the front of me. He used to pass on the back of the house, you know, and they used to all dress up, and he used to go to the inland and next to town, you know. Yeah,
I know. You see, now the grandson didn't know much about his granddad because, you know, he'd never spoken about it. But there's one thing he did find, which was his aunt, who was the, let me think, I think that would be the second wife, had kept an obituary of Tom Turton, which was published in the Tunbridge Wells Advertiser. This would be kind of in the mid-1950s when he died. And there's a little article, a few paragraphs saying, you know, respected local landlord and member of the Constitutional Club, Tom Turton, has died, you know, after, you know, an accident, blah, blah, blah. And then it quoted from an article in the 8th Army News from the summer of 1943, about, and there's a photograph of them at the time, getting, you know, I think this was an article in the 8th Army News, which was the 8th Army newspaper, about the medals they'd got for being the first guys to land in Europe. Yeah, and that is how that's how he knew about the medal, and he's got this article from the 8th Army News. I don't know how he got it. Actually, I do know how he got it. He went to the War Museum. The grandson, he was in the Marines himself at one point.
Did he?
And he came home on leave from Northern Ireland, I think it was, and he went to the War Museum to see if he could find out about his granddad, and he found this article in the 8th Army News, and they copied it for him, so hopefully I'll be able to get a copy of that. But there's a picture of Tom Turton there, you know, with this, in this 8th Army News, apparently, and I don't know who else is in the picture. And he also says that Tom was watching, I think this is after the war, he was at the cinema with his second wife, and they were and a newsreel came on, and it had some stuff about, I'm not sure whether it was Sicily or Anzio or what it was about, but he saw himself on this movie. That's me, which is very much the same as my dad. There is a bit of film of my dad just before Anzio getting onto a landing craft. So hopefully he'll be able to find his, because you can see most of these movies on the internet, you know, little tiny versions of them. So there might be a little bit of film of Tom Turton somewhere.
Can you get anything on internet? computer? Why?
Well, because all of the old newsreels, you know, I don't know if you know, Leda, there were Movie Tone was one, and Pathé was the other, and they used to put them on between the films at the cinema, you know, when lots of people didn't have
remember,
TV.
63 years I've been in England.
So, you know, they'd have the cockerel crowing. I think the Pathé ones, cock-a-doodle-doo, you know, here's the news from everywhere. And it was one of those. Now, these old newsreels, the Pathé and Movie Tone have got them on the internet. You can watch them. You can sit on a computer and watch them. But they're very tiny little versions. You know, they're very hard to see. About a square inch.
If I tell my son, he never keep away from the computer.
Well,
he stays there night and day.
Well, it is addictive because there's but very interesting. It's the Movie Tone newsreel. There's one called Bridgehead to Rome, which is about, you know, the sort of Allied troops heading, you know, as they make their progress from Anzio and then up into Rome, you know. And it's in that one that my dad appears, it was like seeing a ghost when I saw that movie. Do you know what I mean? It was like I was plowing through these old newsreels, like almost frame by frame, because I knew he was there somewhere because he'd seen himself on the TV, you know, in the 1960s. And I plowed through these newsreels. I spent hours and hours, days and days going through the things, and then I found him. It's a few seconds of film, and it's the spinning image of Dad with a tin hat on, and he's loading up some troops into a landing craft.
The landing craft.
And he lifts up his hand. He's kind of waving to this guy, or, you know, he's waving his arm in the air, and you can see his hand, the two fingers missing on his hand, which absolutely clinches it.
It's so long, but not, like you mentioned it, the Turton, and it just is on the front of me, like it was yesterday.
Yeah. So I mean, you were familiar with Tom Turton. I know that I spoke to you about Hugh Birley. Did I?
Yeah.
Who's the guy? I told you he's the, you know, the officers' row. You know the big picture of everybody.
Yeah.
He's the second from the left of the officers there. He's about. Hopefully he's still okay. He's up in Scotland, and now he knocked around. He kind of replaced Well, he when Redshaw left. Before Anzio, that was that's when Hugh Birley arrived in N. Commander, and they met each other for about 3 minutes. You know, Hugh Birley told me that he did see Redshaw. Redshaw was going, and he was arriving. This would be in down by the Red Sea, I think. And but Hugh Birley used to knock around with Tom Turton quite a bit.
Tom Turton, and when Bill Redshaw went, Wallace took over.
Wallace. And that was that as the principal beach master? What would it be? N2, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because Tom Turton was the principal. So hang on. Tom Turton was the beach master of N3, and then when Russell had his leg blown off in Anzio, Tom Turton took over effectively as the beach master of N3 and the CEO of the whole lot.
It took the lot.
That's it, because they didn't get a real, you know, CEO. I'm not quite sure whether they ever did. So Tom Turton, you know, he was head of N3, but head of the whole lot as well.
He was the boss. Like I told you, when he was on the jeep, it looks like he was the lord of.
Tom Turton, he had a jeep accident at some point. He used to like driving fast cars. He was into racing cars, apparently, according to the grandson. And he used to dash around. You know, he was off to various racetracks around the country racing cars before the war. And towards the end of the war, I think it must have been when they were in I've forgotten the name of the place now. Is it Ravenna, up in the northeast?
That's right. That's right. He had an accident and he broke his leg, I think. Ankle something.
Okay. Because that's. I mean, are you remembering that independently of me? That's you know that for.
Well, because in the end of it, we got married in end of May '45.
Yeah.
But I did meet Sid. Like there was a billet on the back of my house. Yeah. It was that big house where they had the photograph took.
Yeah.
That group, the big group, yeah.
Yeah.
And from then they went up to Rimini, Riccione, all of the party, you know, made their way right up to Ravenna.
Yeah.
And I did know because what was going on, most of the things, you know, some of the things he said they couldn't tell me because he come one day and he said, we got a job to do, but I can't say anything, and that was a Comanche.
What did that involve exactly? Do you know anything about that, or did you never find out what exactly? I'm not in the stuff he gave to the War Museum. He talks about that a bit, and there was something about a flamethrower or something. I seem to remember. Does that ring a bell with you?
Well, like I said, they moved up, you know. Sid used to tell me some of the things, but some of the things maybe they had to keep quiet, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not to spread around or something. But I know he went to Ravenna, but in the hand, I did hear he had an accident at Turton.
Yeah, yeah. Because I was wondering if you confused it with, I mean, because my dad did too. He was on a motorbike, I think, with Freddie Underwood. Yeah. And they both came off, and my dad busted his leg.
Did you ask Bromley?
I haven't spoken to Ray for ages because he's been so ill, and I haven't spoken to him since before I last spoke to you.
I did mention it. I did mention it to him. You was going to ring.
That is what. Is Ray okay to talk if I ring him? Is he still, I mean, as okay as he ever was? He was always...
Well, I don't really know how much he could remember now, the way he can, you know, but lots of the things when he come and he... Yeah. You know, but he had to talk to me because he had a girlfriend, but she was too young, you know. Yeah. Couldn't get married like I did. I was 19, 20. I got married with Seaton. Yeah, yeah. And... but if you remember when he was a Pesaro, if you mentioned, if I hadn't let you talk to him, I don't know how you feel it.
You were hinting to me that there was something that Ray Bromley might know that would be of...
When there was a Ravenna, there was a wait to finish the front line, you know, like Comanche, the last push the German way. Yeah. And they put some in Pesaro. Yeah. And where did you say you went to the hospital, your father?
Oh, I'm not sure. My mum thinks he might have ended up in Ancona.
Ancona, yes. Yeah. That's right. It's not far from Ancona.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they pushed so many of, now who's Ray? Ray's 301. 1, is it? N1.
N1, I think.
N1.
Yeah.
And they pushed so many the N1 and Sid carried on to Ravenna. They was in Ravenna. Yeah. And he was in Pesaro for a little while. Yeah. And this when your father had an accident around the Pesaro. They used to go from Ravenna and Pesaro, you know, take over what to do and this and that. And what really was doing, I don't know. I can't tell you that what they was doing there.
You mean you don't know, or you think you better not tell me, or what? You mean
no, I don't know what they was doing there. Okay. I know they was in a big house, and I don't know how many there was in there, but Ray was there. Yeah. Okay. And this when your father had an accident. I know the motorbike accident, but I don't know where's your father.
Ah, okay. Because this is why I rang you first, because I wanted to ring Ray to tell him that, you know, about Turton's grandson getting in touch and that he'd like to talk to him, but I wanted to check with you that Ray was, you know what I mean, Ray was okay, that he wasn't dead, you know, basically, because because there's another thing that the grandson told me, was that he said that at one point, the N1, N2, N3, I'm not sure which one, or maybe the whole lot of them, they were in some house, and there were a bunch of Germans in the same house, and they kind of had a truce between them, that you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone, you know, and they were in one side of this massive great house, and there's a bunch of Germans in the other side of the house, and each side pretended that they, you know, didn't know the other side was there, and I think in the morning, you know, the Germans had disappeared, they headed north. Does that ring a bell with you there?
That not quite. Don't seem I could recall that, you know. But I know when there was in where I come from, Porto San Giorgio. Yeah. The Sid disappeared for a couple of days. Yeah. And I said, I wonder where they're gone, you know. Yeah. He didn't come in with a wash or collect it or anything. You know? And when they come back, and still I don't know how many they went in there, but Sid was one. Yeah. And Crickmar.
Yeah, he's still alive.
Is he?
Yes,